Hey, everybody, in our midweek edition of Nick's TMT Talks, in partnership with Media Play News, Dan drills down on David Ellison's dubious claims about trust in news and how he's the man to fix it. Elsewhere, the streaming business is enjoying a weird new sensation, profitability, and just in the nick of time. Scripps lays off hundreds as it continues fending off Sinclair's improper advances. And Spider-Man has theatrical box office tingling with a $10 billion a year, but it's not quite as straightforward as all that. So, Dan, let's get started, if we can, with claims by one David Ellison, noted for his strong support of the media, or something, and his intentions going forward, and how he's making some interesting claims about media trust and what that means for what he could do with CNN and CBS News in his remit.
Well, you've heard from everybody, David, but you haven't heard from David Ellison. That was how he started his New York Times essay yesterday. Hey, listen, all power to him. If you can approach the old gray lady and say, hey, I got something to say, and they give you a, virtual call.
I just want to point out, I think it's really important. So he's doing New York Times op-ed.
Right.
We had Ari Emanuel earlier in the week do an op-ed, and we had a, shall we say, lightly sourced, not very specific story also in the Wall Street Journal about Gavin Newsom supposedly thinking that not letting the deal go through would be bad. So they're in full court press, it feels like, in the op-ed pages of the Wall Street Journal and New York Times to try to sell this puppy.
Yeah, I thought Ellison's plea fell flat. First off, I think correctly, makes the point that this isn't about the nuts and bolts of antitrust and market shares. It's about who controls CNN. And if here's my news philosophy. It's like, we've already seen we've seen it, buddy. What are you going to say?
Right.
And the way he defended it with this research from Gallup that every one on the far right, from Brendan Carr to Bari Weiss, they've all used it. Only 28% of Americans trust the news media now. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, starting with a president who makes it an essential part of his platform. He's admitted this before. He admitted to Leslie Stahl at 60 Minutes a few years ago. I discredit the news media, so when you can accuse me of something, people don't believe you. He has spent so much of his time, fake news media, enemy of the people, going after Caitlin Collins, Don Lemon, low IQ, you could sit through 10 minutes.
Yeah, but it's also really interesting. I mean, it's all true. But on a relative basis, the media, even with all those assaults on fake news and all that stuff, has anybody looked at the ratings for Donald Trump or the federal government in general at this point, Congress?
Nobody's popular, but
nobody's popular. I mean, it's like, okay, so you say news isn't great. It's like, dude, you're not great. Movie studios aren't trusted. I mean, it's like,
I would never drill down on David Ellison, but I will drill down on this assertion of those Gallup numbers. Gallup puts out a report every, I think, October that gauges it's a survey of consumers, how they feel about the news. And right now it's the registered Republicans who take that survey overwhelmingly don't trust it, and they overwhelmingly watch Fox News. It's not even close. Like 60% of Republicans don't trust the news. 6% of Democrats don't trust the news. So it's a Republican problem. And when you look at, despite his really low poll numbers in the low 30s, according to some surveys, Republicans still track high for this guy. It's like 75% they say he's doing a good job right now. So they're in lockstep with the guy.
But here's the point, though. If it's just Republicans that don't trust all the other non-Fox or Fox to the left of Fox, all right, we just call it that, left of Fox. So, I mean, I'm sure they're cool with One America News and Newsmax and News Nation even, et cetera, et cetera. But if they don't trust that, okay, so that's a Republican thing. At that point, you need to say, okay, so how many non-Fox viewers trust Fox, for instance? If that's going to be that's going to be your decider or your pivot point. It just feels like Well, we know Fox is way over here and skews things and has actually lost hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits over saying fake things.
It's the whole thing conflates propaganda networks with actual news. It's really not very useful information. And I don't accuse Gallup of publishing propaganda. They attempt to apply age and some stridency to it and show you how that number is being arrived at. But
right.
You have half the country that ascribes to a political party that makes its bones by distrusting the news. And to sit here and say that, well, we form the lens that nobody trusts the news, so we have to look inward. That's what David Ellison said. We have to look inward. So basically saying we have to look inward and gut the place. That's the way we did with 60 Minutes, which was at the time the most
well, technically, we have to look inward / rightward to gut the place so that the people we care about, that share of the electorate,
right,
is taken care of. I think it's interesting to watch CBS's ratings since the Bari Weiss takeover and her assiduous move to pull it more in the direction that she and David Ellison believe. And the ratings from that audience, which were not great to start with. Let's just be clear. CBS Evening News was already third.
In last place, right.
It was in last place, and now it's third minus. I mean, it just keeps falling. Tony Dokapil has not been the guy to red pill America to play on.
It's disingenuous.
Political things.
It's all just rhetoric.
No,
it's
disingenuous. I do not believe that, sir. Is that you're saying David Ellison
is happening?
The last Boy Scout is disingenuous?
He's not a Boy Scout. It's not just because of Trump.
He's a fly boy. He's a Trojan.
Did he go to USC?
He went to USC's film school. To the film school. Yes. And, in his defense, he likes movies, as everybody keeps saying. I don't believe for a minute he's going to make 30 films a year for more than about an hour and a half before he looks at his bottom line and says, those last 10 films were a giant sinkhole of losses. But that's neither here nor there. It's, but he went to USC Film School. He's been a producer, executive producer. He acted in a couple of films before he realized, that's not really my thing.
Right.
I got a big old $5 billion from Daddy burning a hole in my wallet. Maybe I'll be an EP instead. But he's been a producer, executive producer, and a hardworking one, by all accounts, on a bunch of successful, if not particularly deep, movies. So,
if he wants this merger, he should accentuate the positive. He has produced
as Monty Python said, always look on the bright side of life, even if you're being crucified by the Romans.
Right.
To-do.
The box
always
office
look
was
on the bright side of life.
All right, this could go the other way. The box office, as we'll get to, did not die. It is on the way to some kind of recovery. And I think you have David Ellison, who produced a very important motion picture at a very dire time, Top Gun 2.
Yeah.
You notice what he's doing there. That was an achievement. That was, a lot of fine lines to walk to make that thing credible and resuscitate its star's career and everything amid the pandemic. And he did it. And there is aptitude and competence there, no doubt about it. There is another argument that focuses on running a movie studio and taking two companies to do it and combining them. And I think he can argue that really effectively. He's already shown us what he wants to do with news. I think he should divest CNN. He's already got a news outlet. Let somebody else have it. Tell Trump, didn't work out. And let us go on with our lives and have multiple viewpoints in American communications like we always have.
I think that one of the things that's worthwhile in all of this is pondering how much influence Trump will have about an hour after polls close in early November, because he will be officially a lame duck, a lame duck of uncertain mental faculties and posting like mad, no doubt.
The comeback kid has got something up his diaper for this. I mean, nothing's in the bag. Nothing's in the bag.
Nothing's in the bank, but it'll be interesting to see how much people listen to him, depending on what happens. We'll see. The Democrats have a complete capability to screw up what's normally a midterm election walkover, where they get 40 seats on average in the House and sometimes take back the Senate. That was always going to be tough this year because of the set of seats that were up. But, there's actually a way to say it could happen between Maine, what's going on in Michigan.
Your boy,
Probably not Texas, but maybe, so we'll see.
the new 60 Minutes correspondent, Tony Douthat, did I get his first name right?
Ross Douthat.
Ross Douthat, right.
Ross Douthat.
He is not mailing in his last couple of weeks at the New York Times. He had a really good article on Tuesday talking about what Trump would need to resuscitate his political career at this point.
Douthat's a really thoughtful guy. I mean, he's not politically aligned with anything that I'm into, but I find him interesting. And he enrages some folks on the left. I mean, I'm sorry, on the right, just because he's a little more heterodox, I mean, he's willing to think about things, and he's got a grounding, for instance, in conservative Catholicism that newcomer J.D. Vance, for all his enthusiasm, will never have. Douthat's a little more intellectual than Vance is. So
and he fits right in there at the New York Times that needs a little bit more of that vein in it, that intellectual vein in it, because it can't all be just people on the far left ranting about Trump.
You can't just have, it's not just Maureen Dowd ranting about Trump's carpet or something, or whatever clever thing she's using as a club to beat him with this day.
Man,
but Dowd's an interesting guy. is he leaving the Times or cutting back? I mean, I thought, because
he was leaving. I thought it's a full-time job.
Maybe he's leaving. It's not that full-time a job. Look, if Anderson Cooper could work for another network at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
A guy writing a few op-eds, maybe you write half as many and you still have that bully pulpit. I don't know. I don't think I would give that one up, but Ross shall go his own way. So
it's a decent little media career if you can swing it.
If you can swing it. Yeah, we're working on that. So maybe we'll be co-writing a New York Times piece next. Speaking of dubious news beatings, the streaming business doing pretty good.
The wildly profitable streaming business, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's not wildly profitable, but I think it's really important, and it's tied into a separate story that I wrote in this week's edition, or this midweek edition, about Spider-Man: Brand New Day had a shockingly amazing first weekend, 927 million globally, second best all time. It beat and no one saw it coming, including the studio Sony that released it. It broke the record by Avengers Endgame for domestic, 360 million or something like that. So pretty good weekend, and it's already at 1.1 billion, making it the highest grossing film of the year, even more than the very much talked about The Odyssey, what I like to call the film that launched 1,000 takes per minute on the internet. That's my little reference to Homer, because everybody says I'm a Homer at heart. Go Dodgers. But that being said, so it had a fantastic week. The Odyssey's at 930 million itself and counting, because it's going to remain in IMAX theaters until September 18th, according to Rich Gelfond, who was on CNBC, saying, yeah, it's really great to be the IMAX CEO right now, because we've got 60 million in advance sales already for the Odyssey through the middle of September, 2 months after its release, and we'll be showing Spider-Man as of week 3 now of the Odyssey's release. We'll be doing both and making money from both of them. So all of that translates to a very good box office. Finally, 6 years after the pandemic.
Well, it's been steadily over the last 3 years.
No, it has not been. It is not. It is not.
Because I looked. Here's what I'm basing this on. Because I looked at the year-to-date numbers for around this time in the mid to late summer, and it was up year over year in 2024, up year over year in 2025, and this year it's sustained that level of growth this year. So it looks
so 2023 was a better year than 2024.
It was, okay.
And then 2025, not just year to date.
Right. I didn't look at the whole year. That's it's the
year, because they faded badly. They had good summer stuff, something, maybe it was an Avatar, it was whatever. So they did great, and then they faded. So none of them got above 9 billion. All right. They were all 8 billion and change, which is way better than the like 2 billion in the pandemic year, but way below the 11 billion plus for each of the 5 years before the pandemic. So 2023 was the best. It was down several percent 2024 and then up 1% for the year in 2025. And again, all those were 8 billion and change. So this will probably be 10 billion and change because you've not only got what's already in there with Super Mario Galaxy movie, The Odyssey, Michael, the regrettable biopic about a regrettable, extremely talented human being, musician, and one other I can't remember off the top of my head. You've got all of those in or around a billion. Yes, I am. Apparently, when it comes to child, molestation, I'm big that way. Like it's bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So those five, but still to come on the same day in December are the next Avengers from the Russo brothers, which set all the records that Spider-Man was trying to break. Avengers Endgame in 2019. They're coming back with another Avengers from the Russo brothers on December 18th, the same day Dune 3 comes out.
I gotta tell you, it shows real guts to kill a superhero. I mean, nobody wants to do it, but it shows the audience, hey, there's a line here. Nobody's really immortal. And
then you bring him back as Dr. Doom, so he's so dead.
I know. It's like...
He's so dead. He's wearing a mask. Different mask.
Somebody's got to stay dead.
No Iron Heart.
Credibility matters.
Snap. They're all back. Snap. It's all done.
And I thought this thing would die already. This Spider-Man has to be the most enduring franchise. I mean, for like the last 20 years, they've plundered the shit out of that thing, and they still get hit movies out of it every couple of years.
Well, but the deal is, I think that for what it's worth, not only does he have super Spidey strength, but I think that he is seen as a regular guy in extraordinary circumstances,
right?
Who labors with loneliness and insecurities and a sense of responsibility that these other guys have never had. And the people that have played him have been, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, now particularly Tom Holland.
The Man of Steel didn't deal with loneliness and big decisions.
No, he had the Fortress of Solitude. It's like, I'm going to go to my ice palace and sit around by myself and I don't know,
have
melt
robots
things with my eyes.
Wait on me, make me beverages. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, but like this guy was nothing. He could barely make a living as a photographer, has a hard time dating with MJ and all that. He loses his uncle because of something he did or didn't do. Aunt May eventually dies 6 or 7 times. It's amazing. She's a tough old bird. But it's a likable character play and approachable character played by likable performers. Tom Holland, I think, in particular. There's a happy-go-luckiness in some ways to them, a lightness to them, and certainly a less self-importance. And the new one has him dealing with these issues of loneliness and isolation when his friends their memories are blanked out. So they don't remember him being close with him, which, protects them, but leaves him isolated. And that's stop criminals, rinse, repeat.
Kyle Rittenhouse recently got bitten by a spider, but he's still a turd. It didn't make him better.
Well, some things, that's called real world. That's not the movies.
Let's move on to
but here's the point.
Revolution. Okay,
but here's the point. This ties to the streaming revolution. So they're finally having some good numbers, but I would hold that it is a K-shaped recovery. So you can have gigantically popular $1 billion plus films hit a home run. Their numbers are a little bit skewed because since 2019, we've had 23.5% inflation by best estimates between 2019 and 2025, 23.5% inflation in the price of the average ticket. The kinds of tickets that get sold are going to be largely IMAX, 4DX, or Disney has a new premium format certification program called Infinity Vision. All these are charging more for the privilege of watching the movie on the best screens at a premium price. And that's great because it's like, this is the thing that makes it different, but it skews what the numbers are. So the everyday mid-range, mid-budget film is gone. That's on streaming, right? That's the $40 million to $60 million project that used to go and fill out everything in the theaters. For
Yeah, we talked about
Spider-Man,
this with Pressure a few
yeah,
weeks ago.
yeah.
Brendan
So
Fraser.
Spider-Man was in some theaters. It was on more than half their screens. They had a showing every 15 minutes in some theater, in some megaplexes. So that means they're not showing anything else. So yes, this is hugely successful. But like, where's the rest? So then the question becomes, okay, what does that mean downstream? And downstream is streaming. Increasingly, streaming matters because it is starting to make money. So for Disney, streaming generated about a third of their revenue last quarter. And we don't know what was out of, ESPN, the app, what was out of Disney Plus, what was out of whatever is left of Hulu as it's being bowled into
So they
Disney
just said
Plus.
DTC, just one big line out of DTC.
DTC, yes, with the CB, cash, direct to cash.
Disney takes your cash.
Cash takes cash. But finally, it's paying off for them, which is great. And even as Robert Fishman, the Moffat Davidson analyst, pointed out, even
That
the
he doesn't like
underperformers,
us.
the live action Moana and the Mandalorian and Grogu did not perform and they were expensive. They will be additive, as he put it, to streaming and consumer products. And I've been listening to this wonderful podcast from these guys that acquired about the history of Disney. And this is exactly the stuff Roy Disney was talking about after World War II, when they realized, hey, we don't have any films because we just spent World War II doing like buy war bonds shows with Donald Duck. But we still had these two films that came out in 1940, Pinocchio and Fantasia, that underperformed because we lost all of Europe and Asia as markets that we would have otherwise done well with. And we took a bath in 1940. We still have them sitting in the vault. We can re-release them. They re-released them and they made millions of dollars and with like very little cost. And the Disney Vault was created. Well, now the Disney Vault
was that the report
is Disney
that
Plus.
Walt referred to the flywheel?
Well, he started the flywheel really in the 30s.
Right.
So
I'll make a joke about that. He would never come up with a cornball piece of modern American corporate genericism like that.
Well, they were using the flywheel concepts back in the 30s.
They were,
because they had a daily Mickey Mouse cartoon strip. The Mickey Mouse Club was started in theaters because kids were so into this Mickey Mouse cartoon that they would come and watch Mickey over and over again, all the Mickey shows. And so they created this Mickey Mouse Club deal with theater owners, specific theater owners, for $25 per theater. You could have a Mickey Mouse Club, sign up kids for that, and get their string of Mickey Mouse shows, and they would play them over and over all afternoon, which was a dead zone otherwise. And so that was part of it. But then it was things like the Mickey Mouse Club, Mickey Mouse Daily Cartoon Strip in hundreds of newspapers. It was a whole bunch of other content that was coming out that was, again, part of the flywheel. There's the core stuff, which is the high quality cartoons, but realizing other bits would come in. Disney figured this out, stumbled into it, and they started doing consumer products and were making millions of dollars off of consumer products.
Yes.
In the 30s, in the middle of the Depression, and they stumbled into all of it.
Yes.
So now, fast forward 90 years, and it's still there, and it's part of the core of Disney. It's part of the DNA of Disney. But the streaming is working for them, and it's working in ways that look very familiar if you know the history of the company. But it's also working. It's working for Paramount. It's working for Peacock.
So real quickly, though, going back to Disney, what was the rate of growth for DTC profit? Do you recall offhand? I mean, I'm trying to...
9%. 9%. Up 9%. Up 9%.
So the profits are not just here now; they're growing every quarter.
They're growing. Yeah.
What's the magic hour where they reach the point where linear TV deficits no longer matter? Nobody talks about that.
Well, that's a lot of money, but I haven't seen the the converging lines on that one. It's an interesting question because
Right.
this really matters to Paramount. Paramount has built its entire $111 billion Warner Brothers deal on a belief that owning more than 50% of the cable networks will allow it to extract enough cash to finance a 7X debt thing, even as it's laying off everybody at all those cable operations and probably broadcast. So that's the plan, even though he's talking about, being nobody trusts news. It's like, well, no one trusts your numbers either, David, because this stuff doesn't pencil out very well, and you guys think it will, and you're willing to put a bunch of billions and billions of dollars into it. It's like, okay, but it can be interesting. And the deal is, as their stuff is drooping, Paramount Plus their streaming bucket is going up, but that includes Pluto and it includes BET Plus. So it's hard to tell what's what. But unlike Peacock, they didn't have to have a Super Bowl, World Cups, Winter Olympics, Love Island, and NBA playoffs the last half of the year to get to profitability. So
Yeah, so they get Peacock. They'll have NFL football soon again. The NBA will ramp up.
yeah, then they'll have some college. They'll have the start. Well, the NBA season really starts next quarter,
That's
not this
true.
quarter, but it's October-ish, end of October, mid-October, I guess. But I don't think they have any baseball playoffs. I think that's
So,
mostly ESPN.
and you were really keen to get into this. I think dead zone of the media business, which I couldn't argue too much. But I looked at Scripps earnings are Thursday. They're today.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, going into that, they laid off nearly 270 news workers. And this is it's the most
Was
conspicuous.
it just news in
I
Scripps?
think so, for the most part, across a bunch of stations. They own,
They can't have. I can't believe they had 270 to lay off and still have, quote, a news operation. Who's going to trust that when it's just one dude with a selfie stick saying, live from this giant constipation stuff happened. Back to you, Jim. Oh, Jim's
they're
gone too.
centralizing it, making it a sort of
an
AI-driven 24/7 news operation. That's not
exactly what Nexstar is doing. That's exactly what Nexstar is doing.
Station to station anymore. It's such a local market. It's a centralized news bot that takes localizes it as much as that's possible without human intervention. And it was telegraphed last year. As you may recall, Sinclair looked to, at the time, increase its ownership stake in Scripps from 8.2% of non-voting stock to the full Monty. They wanted to buy out the family and control the company. The Scripps family, which you know a lot about.
To be clear, the people that have a piece of the Scripps, that's not a trust, but whatever it is, the family holdings, it's something like
93% of the.
But it's like 80 people. But it's like 80 people have a piece of this. And some of those people don't like Sinclair.
They voted unanimously to adopt a shareholders' rights plan, which is basically which is called a poison pill that has held Sinclair at bay. This was in late November of last year. It's supposed to last a year. And part of the plan was, the standalone plan was, we're going to reconfigure the business. We're going to cut a bunch of heads and automate news and make it very AI driven. And this appears to be part of that. It looks like they're going to vote to extend that poison pill. So don't look for Sinclair to take over the joint anytime soon.
They probably won't, but I know there is some support within those dozens of Scripps descendants. There is some support is like, let's just cash out, because it's not like owning a bunch of stations is going to be more valuable in the future. It's like, we can do all this stuff. We can automate it. We can AI it. We can do all that stuff. But this stuff is not getting worth more. And, this is exactly what happened in the newspaper business in the 2000s, when a bunch of families that owned, sort of famous families, the Knight Ridder clan, the LA Times family, whose names are escaping me right now, they sold out to the Chicago Tribune, and the Knight Ridder folks sold out, and a bunch of others sold out to the Chandlers. Thank you. A bunch of others sold out and turned into cash their asset that had been, a license to print money, not just newsprint, sold off to somebody else like Alden or Dean Singleton, my former employer, and headed off to Rio. They're like, this chick ain't bouncing. They got out because the opportunities were modest, and the ones that really, for that matter, the Graham family and the Washington Post got out, right? So now you look at it and you go, who's left? And not many in the newspaper business. The same thing's going to happen in the local broadcast. And I think there's going to be some clarity beyond the political distaste for Sinclair. There's going to be some clarity among some portion of that family. It's like, we'll sell our shares.
Right.
And maybe we don't support. This. I don't think Sinclair is going to stop being interested. And then all you need is a slow dribble of shares going off at some point when that poison pill
Yeah, it's
is
just
no
not going to be
longer
this
in
November.
effect.
I think they're going to give this.
Probably not this November. I think that's fair to say.
Right.
Though I suspect there's some belief in Sinclair they might be able to pull this out. I don't think it'll be that simple. The fact that it's November, right in the middle of the election, will only complicate some of the political considerations involved. To be frank, just the timing is such that, people who already are concerned about Sinclair are going to be like double concerned depending on how the election turns out, for instance. So should be interesting.
It will
But
be interesting.
again, we are talking about the end days of a platform. It's not going away, but what's going to be left is not going to matter as much, despite all the noise they make, despite their continued influence in DC with NAB's power, the fact that they're in every district.
Happy new businesses that are just had their IPO. I don't know if you saw the SpaceX first ever quarterly earnings
Never
report.
heard of it. Is that a big company?
Little rocket company owned by a very modest, deep thinking futurist technologist, just, crazy, nerdly guy, just full of ideas and wants to take over our elections and doesn't like people of color.
Bob Iger? Oh, no, that's not Bob Iger.
No,
he's retired anyway.
So yeah, Elon Musk was there. Gwynne Shotwell, who runs SpaceX, the president, was there, and they unveiled some decent numbers. I don't have them in front of me. They got sort of overwhelmed on the stock market with the equity analysts saw what they're spending on data center build out and got freaked out. I think that's kind of an industry wide.
Yeah. Well, look, they're already losing $5 billion a year. They're doing a data center build out while, the whole deal was the hyperscalers were paying for most of their data center, well, all of it for 2 or 3 years with free cash flow.
Right.
FCF, the most magical substance in Wall Street. And only in the last 6 months have even the most profitable companies in the history of profits had to start borrowing money to keep up with the data center build out.
When it becomes debt, then it becomes a problem.
Which is why we've written about Larry Ellison, not David Ellison, but Daddy Larry, and all the borrowing Oracle's
doing. That's why I want you involved in those projects so you can share this wisdom, Dave.
So now SpaceX makes something like $9 billion, but spends something like $14 billion while it's building out all the things that Elon wants to do without immediate or near-term payouts. And when you are building out data centers for Grok so that you can resell that data center capacity to somebody else, well, that's a business. Meta's doing kind of the same thing, though they don't have the business overlay, and Grok really doesn't either. Grok is, and also ran in the AI space, unless you want nude things or Nazi things. Nudes and Nazis, that's what Grok's good for.
SpaceX was, I don't know if you looked at the stock price, but it was up throughout the most of the day yesterday, kind of way up. And then it fell again after I think everybody crunched the numbers and looked at what they just done.
SpaceX, look, here's the deal. SpaceX has a bunch, an outsized number, just like Tesla, an outsized number of retail investors who are fans of Elon, fine, but theirs may not be the most reasoned take on the actual numbers themselves. So some of this stuff, and these guys can't sell. I mean, that's the other thing that's interesting. They're locked in various levels for a little while more on the shares that they bought during the IPO, because that was one of the deals, so that people couldn't just take advantage of the opening week, sell out, and walk away. So a lot of those guys are locked in for a little while to come. Those lockout things will go away. And last I looked, they were still pretty down. I mean, they're well below their launch price still, right? They were down to 108 when I looked 3-4 days ago.
Here was what was interesting to me, and Dan Jones of our sibling publication, Next TMT Networks, is going to do a special issue tomorrow.
Is it a sibling publication or is it a spin-off publication? Because this is like a Hollywood conversation.
It's kind of a bastard child, I would think.
Well, I know about that.
Anyway, Dan is going to
call a bastard for years.
Not with us, Dave. You're welcome here.
Thank goodness.
He's going to look at this tomorrow. And there's the big question about how, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, how will Starlink, SpaceX's big telecom division, expand their direct-to-device satellite business? They're currently beaming down internet to rural areas, doing it very effectively, getting a lot of talk, but they can't compete in denser areas because D2D doesn't go through walls. It doesn't go through steel, concrete. You need terrestrial networks like AT&T has, like Verizon has, like T-Mobile has. They have a solution, according to Gwen Shotwell. She talked about it yesterday. It's like, I forget what they call them. They're like these cells that will go on customer dishes, and there'll be, I guess, thousands or millions of those, and that's how they'll get the radio signals out. They'll get the satellite signal.
Right. She'll have to outfit thousands or millions of those to get and create a mesh network effectively that overlays what you've already got.
Right.
It's worth noting that their shares dropped precipitously just yesterday, 13.61%. It's down to 108. So went up, you're right, and then boop, it had a parabolic curve. So 13% is a lot, and it does suggest that not everybody thinks that's. I mean, part of it is if you're going to do an add-on to everybody's dish, to get them to also do like urban stuff. Well, sure, but everything you ask them to do on top of the thing they already did means there's a percentage who aren't going to get around to it, don't care, aren't going to bother, don't trust, all the signals are beaming into your head, whatever.
Yeah, they still need spectrum to do it. They bought the spectrum to get the signal down, I guess, but they can't. They need the radio signal to broadcast the 5G.
Well, they can just take over a bunch of broadcast stations. They could buy Nexstar. Won't cost them anything. Like $9 billion.
Small stations tied to Starlink dishes. Anyway, Dan Jones interviewed some analysts who are kind of skeptical about it. He'll be filing. We filed an hour earlier than we did. So if you want to subscribe to Next TMT Networks, read the story there. It's
okay.
A big part of that valuation, or what's left of it, is what Starlink can do with that business. If they could.
Well, that's the near term. That's seen as something that could drive a lot of consumer facing revenue, right? So, but it's still 3 to 5 years out to be hefty, but it's at least within the realm of, as opposed to, we're going to put 500,000 satellites up into low Earth orbit and all the rockets and the rocket fuel and the rocket recovery systems and the turnaround to be able to do that at a cadence that makes sense as opposed to taking 50 years, right?
Right.
So, Starlink looks more promising in that regard for a shorter term return on investment, which
happily
some investors care about.
Elon-centric investors got some happy news. Recently, the FCC, under our boy Brendan Carr, prohibited robots made overseas from sale in the U.S. markets. You can't buy them or sell them. That includes
no immigrant robots. This is consistent,
basically,
right?
Right.
If that robot speaks with a Spanish accent, we don't want it.
Put them at Guantanamo. So that clears the market for
Guantanamo bots.
That was the big headline.
Guantanabots. I like Guantanabots. That's got a ring to it, by God.
Most of
They're
Tesla's
banned.
discussion yesterday was on the robot side of the business for good reason. The federal government
Yeah.
just cleared out the space.
Right. Well, yeah, right. It certainly cleared away any Chinese challengers, Japanese challengers, which, Japan's been investing heavily in robot development for 20 years because of their demographic challenges. They need somebody to take care of their hugely old population. Their demographic cliff is seriously bad. And same thing in Europe, but particularly
No, it's the Chinese that sort of
the
own this
Chinese
market.
have one coming, but they are, it's hard to get a date if you're just a dude in China because they killed off literally lots and lots of young women for 20 years.
I'm talking about
But,
factory robots, Dave, manufacturing robots.
well, I understand that, but that demographic issue in Japan is not about that. But there are Japanese robots that are perfectly good that apparently won't be able to come into town either. So, and robots are indeed one of the things that Elon is promising big opportunities in. Big opportunities. So
yeah, big
self-driving
opportunities.
robots.
Bigger opportunities on your TV set this week. You got the debut of NFL Hard Knocks with this world champion or Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Waiting for my son to get a break from work to watch with them. He's a big Seahawks fan. You've got, and you wrote about this last week, the Shards, new Ryan Murphy collaboration with Bret Easton Ellis on FX, which debuted last night. You've got Devil Wears Prada 2 is now free on Disney Plus. And
how about Ted fucking Lasso?
I hear bad things.
Oh, that's just the right wing because they're mad about this, about chicks now.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Who knows if they can recapture the magic? Jason Sudeikis' character goes back to the Greyhounds, but it's the Lady Greyhounds now as they find a way. And actually, they shot this, and I love this as a Missouri native. They shot many of the scenes at the Kansas City National Women's Soccer League team, at the Current's own stadium in Kansas City. They're the only, or certainly the first, NWSL franchise to build its own stadium. And it's not big. It's 11,700 seats. But they already generated, because this piece I saw in the Athletic, they already generated $38 million in merchandise because they're able to control this experience and do interesting things with it. I mean, this is really interesting in terms of building a sustainable lower tier sports thing. These up and coming leagues, the women's soccer league is going to be, I think, continuing to develop. There's certainly an audience there. Bob Iger and Willow Bay spent $250 million to buy the LAFC team, Angel City.
Right.
Not LAFC, but the Angel City franchise. And they think there's a lot of merchandising opportunity. I know somebody who was approached for a gig at the top there, and they would do great given their background in all the sports gear. These things can make a ton of money.
I haven't seen it, but I hear the story arc is your Ted Lasso after leaving.
Well, it just debuted on Wednesday.
Yeah, he leaves. He goes and trains and studies under Nick Saban, and comes back with a different coaching philosophy.
Noted women's soccer coach Nick Saban.
More disciplined approach to the game. No nonsense coaching. A lot of the women get cut the first episode. There's tears, but Ted doesn't care.
Then Juno Temple beats him with her little tiny fists, and he relents.
He plays with rat poison at one point.
Episode 2.
The media getting inside the locker room.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, it won 2 Best Comedy Series Emmys for Apple and a bunch of other stuff. And then we thought it was done after 3 seasons.
Should have stayed back, Dave.
Well, until you've actually seen it, maybe you should. You and Elon and everybody else ought to withhold judgment. I'm going to check it out. My spouse is very excited about it. It's a sports show she can get into, though she has now become much more open to sports. She likes Running Point on HBO. Is that on Netflix? I think it's basically not the Lakers, but it's a comedy based on a family that looks a lot like the Bus Family.
Yeah.
And is an amusing show starring Kate Hudson. that I recommend. Jason Thoreau's in there as the jerky brother. I can't keep track of the bus brothers that ended up trying a putsch to push Jeannie Buss out and then ended up being unemployed. But there were a couple of them that tried.
Yeah,
And now,
she's
of course,
the alpha dog of the family. I wouldn't have tried to,
yeah,
I think it was
yeah.
Jimmy
Well,
and the older one.
and now it doesn't matter because they've sold a controlling interest to Mark Walter, who owns the controlling interest in the Dodgers. And among the people advising him in basketball is Farhan Zaidi, who used to do that for the Dodgers and then went up to do it for the San Francisco Giants baseball teams. And he's really good in baseball. He's advising Mark Walter about basketball operations, which I find very interesting. So we'll see if they're any good this year.
Yeah, they have this thing called the salary cap with, the Dodgers have been fably successful here. They have a massive roster salary, and they went out and signed the the best pitcher in baseball, essentially. They got
By far, probably a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, possible candidate this year. His record isn't quite as glittering.
It seems like an unlimited, as much as they can pay, basically, they bring onto that roster.
But what's interesting is it'll cost him $10 million. It's basically a rental unless he decides to stick around, which is entirely possible. But he had $10 million left on his contract for the rest of the season. Okay, that's not terrible. They sent 3 prospects, which are good players, good young players, but they've built up an incredibly smart, successful farm system. So they have prospects to trade.
They have capital to trade, prospect-wise, bankroll-wise.
Yes, exactly. But they have that. But what they spent to get Screwball. I just want to say Screwball because I think of Carl Hubble. Anyway,
or Fernando Valenzuela.
There you go. 3 prospects to get in for $10 million for the rest of the year. A whole bunch of teams could have done that. A whole bunch of teams that want to be in the playoffs against the Dodgers. Milwaukee could have done that. All these, a whole bunch of other teams that have pretensions to playing in the playoffs. I mean, he's the kind of pitcher you kind of want to have against the Dodgers, and none of them did it. The Dodgers did it. And they're willing to do things these other teams are too weenie to do.
In the meantime, the regular season, my son had one of his high school baseball teammates whose family's from Boston. He pitches for a Division III team out there right now. They're all hanging out for what's left of the summer, watching the Red Sox-Dodger game the other day. And my kid's about to go to sleep, and the Red Sox fan is bounced all over the couch. When we can afford this much largesse, it just makes the regular season kind of a bore, I think. Oh, well, it can't last much longer. They're going to have a collective bargaining agreement. There'll be a cap. There'll be reckoning. So enjoy it while it lasts.
I don't know if that happens. I mean, we'll have a strike, almost certainly. The question is whether we lose games next year and for how long. So the Dodgers are trying to get one more championship in before everything gets turned upside down with what will probably be an extended labor strike. So enjoy your Dodgers if you're a Dodger fan. Enjoy hating the Dodgers if you're a Dodger non-fan, because it's going to be a mess this time next year, I think. So,
well, we've treated our readers once again to a potpourri of discussion,
as they don't say it in France. Anyway, yes,
potpourri,
potpourri. Wait. This is Next TMT Talks, our midweek edition, created and distributed in collaboration with our beloved friends at Media Play News. It is available twice a week and on all the fields, all the services. So that's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and probably other fine places where great audio and visual entertainment abides. For free, can't beat that. Also, Next TMT Talks, our twice-a-week newsletter, which covers all things in technology, media, and telecom. That's the T, the M, and the T. At Next TMT, all of this is available. You can sign up at nexttmt.com. Like, share, subscribe, comment. All those things are great. I am David Bloom here with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. Thank you very much for all your attention.